in order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough, and it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we are dealing in hate.
We are oppressed. We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you? And I, for one, as a Muslim, believe that the white man is intelligent enough. If he were made to realize how black people really feel and how fed up we are without that old compromise and sweet talk. Stop sweet talking him. Tell him how you feel. Tell him what kind of hell you've been catching, and let him know that if he's not ready to clean his house up, if he's not ready to clean his house up, he shouldn't have a house. It should catch on fire and burn down.
Hello friends, it's Loma here, otherwise known as Lomalicious Lomita, and my grandson calls me Momo. I'm a proud grandma, so you can call me Momo too. Welcome to my special edition of 28 Movies in 28 Days for Black History Month. We're on day 5, and today we are talking about Malcolm X the Man and Malcolm X the movie by Spike Lee that was made in 1992. I'll give you a quick background about Malcolm X if you do not know anything about him. He was born Malcolm Little in 1925. His father was a reverend and died under mysterious circumstances. They say it was an accident. He was hit by a streetcar when Malcolm was about 6 years old, I believe. Although we know his father was killed by the KKK. Because their family had been under attack by them a few times. There was one house that the KKK had smashed in their windows. They had moved, and then another house. I don't remember the name of it was like a branch off sect of the KKK that had burned his house down. After his father died, his mother had a nervous breakdown and was committed to a mental institution. And that's when Malcolm and his siblings had faced troubles because they went from home to home. Eventually, about 15 years old, well, he actually went to school in one of the homes that he was placed in. They had sent him to the school, and it was... when he had said to his teacher that he wanted to become a lawyer, she said, well, Negroes don't become lawyers. It's very unrealistic for him to have that goal and dream that he should have become a carpenter instead. And that really discouraged him. Although he was at the top of his class, he was a bright student and his grades were excellent. And, we know that he could have definitely become a lawyer. But due to all that discouragement, he was like, screw this, and I'm out of here. And he went to move with his sister in Boston when he was 15 years old. And then from there, I think around 17, he went to live in Harlem, New York. But he was involved in a lot of petty crime. Before the Malcolm we know, Malcolm Little, was kind of just a little gangsta criminal and causing these petty crimes and burglaries, and he got into a lot of trouble. And then he eventually went to jail when he was about 21, and that is when he found the Nation of Islam, and really, he said all he did was fill his days with reading. So we are going to discuss Malcolm, and then that is when he became Malcolm X. He was with the Nation of Islam for quite a long time until they had not a great, he broke off from them, and we know he was assassinated at 39 years old, quite a young man, but he was a wonderful leader, really promoted Black pride, empowerment, and he was very different from the other activists back in that time, because as we know, there was also Martin Luther King Jr., who was very different in his style, and he wasn't, Malcolm did not agree with his style due to the fact of all the violence brought onto the Black community by the white community and the KKK and different things that he had gone through. And he felt you cannot have peace when one side is not peaceful, and when they are being victimized. So without further ado, I would love to get on, and I'm so excited to share with you my first guest, my first wonderful guest for my vlog, and hopefully many more to come, and hopefully many more conversations filled with wisdom. And it was such a joy. I'm going to share now with you a discussion I had with my sister-in-law from earlier today, and let's get right to it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy as much as I did.
Yes. So thank you for the intro. Expert? Not quite, but I do love and enjoy Malcolm X, the movie directed by Spike Lee. It was a great movie, one of my favorite movies that I watch every Black History Month. It's the first movie starting in February that the family takes in, and I'm glad to be on your show, Nameless, to talk about movies for Black History Month. The walking, the feather in the hat, the zoot suits, I think they're called. Very flashy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they didn't want him doing the movie. Hollywood was against him producing and directing this movie due to the fact, I guess, the controversy around who Malcolm X was, and just that they didn't feel it was going to be a big sell, right? But Spike Lee took the initiative, and he asked his community to help him get this movie started, and he found a lot of resources within the Harlem community. Things that helped him were other artists that were known in the community of Harlem that really pitched in. Other actors and actresses, Black actors and actresses, also, I think they pitched in financially. I think even Denzel took a pay cut for the movie as well. So there was a lot of resources to really get the movie out, even though they didn't want to get it out. They wanted to erase that part of history again for us. But Spike Lee did it. He put it out there. Mm-hmm. Yes, by all means necessary. This picture here was my dad's. And hey. Wow. Great question. So Denzel playing Malcolm was the best choice. Like, he did such a phenomenal job as Malcolm X. And if you see footage of Malcolm X, down to the laugh, like the little gestures and postures, Denzel playing Malcolm was bang on. He really worked very hard to really portray Malcolm X. I thought the casting for that was a great choice. Denzel did so good. He did really well. I wish he would have won an Oscar for that movie, but he didn't. I think they did. I think you're right. I think they did snub the movie. I don't think it was even a contender back in 1992 or 3 for Oscar nomination. it should have been nominated. The movie was well done. Well done. He was becoming huge. He really brought the Nation of Islam to the level that it became throughout, that time, where everything that he spoke about was Elijah Muhammad. Everything was Elijah Muhammad. But a really good fact about Malcolm X that a lot of people may not know if they don't really know who Malcolm is, they'll just automatically think of him being that devil hate whiting person. Like white people were devils, right? But once he grew out of that learning and teachings from Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he disengaged from the Nation of Islam and then took a flight to, I believe, Egypt to really have an eye-opening to learn what true Islam was and being a real practicing Muslim. And then he came back from that trip and he said, you know what? I'm no longer associated with Nation of Islam. I'm looking to work with, Malcolm X and all those other freedom fighters who were, that very much, there were differences, right? Martin was nonviolent, while Malcolm X was, by all means necessary, right? So he was like, squash all that and let's work together. And I believe there was a question from someone in the audience, can white people join? And I think this point he says, he's like, unfortunately, no. We as Black people need to work together, get our family in order, get our self in order, to learn how to work with each other before we let outsiders in. I thought that was so important. It really draws back to, the teaching of Marcus Garvey, right? Where a lot of his newfound preaching and education was coming from that same message which he got from his own father about Pan-Africanism and that whole African movement through Marcus Garvey's teachings. Yeah. Malcolm is known for a lot of his quotes, man. He had some really good, powerful ones, and then there's some quotes that just really stick to you when he speaks about stuff like, if they attack you. So I think I'm going to get the wording all wrong, but the gist of it is, I'm not a violent person. I would never harm no one intentionally, but if someone comes after my family and my friends and they're violent towards me, you're damn right I'm going to put them in a grave. Like that was his message, right? So it was very different from Martin Luther King. Very, very different. Yeah. And it's just that trauma from a young boy to an adult. Like you see his father, the Ku Klux Klan is burning his house down. His siblings, the father's taking all the kids out of the house. And then years later, it happened, the exact same thing happens to Malcolm. They try to burn his house down. He's grabbing his kids, trying to secure them and keep them safe by running out of the house, right? So that trauma, that deep-rooted trauma from his own growing up as, in the South, to when he was an adult. So of course he's going to be not trustworthy or very adamant about walking around with a gun, and by all means necessary. So I think it was in high school. My dad, who's always been like, my dad's he's a silent, quiet man, but he's a man to stand up and educate you about your Blackness. So in high school, he was reading the book, right? He finished the book, the autobiography of Malcolm X. He gave it to me and he's like, here, this is a good book, you should read it. So then I read it. It took me a while to actually pick it up and read it. It was like a long book. And back in the day in high school, I'm not sure I want to read that. But after reading the book, I was like, this is just his journey from, being that gangbanger or, stealing and robbing, doing drugs, going to prison, finding the Nation of Islam, realizing the Nation of Islam is just, does not sit well with him anymore. And then taking that journey to really find and seek out what his new path, what he needs to share to the world, and really stand up and say, I've made mistakes, but I'm willing to move forward if you're willing to move forward with me. And I thought that was very important to recognize, because if you're going to stand up and say, I made some mistakes, but I'm willing to move forward, with those to work together for the betterment of Black people, I was like, wow, very moved and impressed by that. And don't get me wrong, Martin Luther King, another amazing man, I have a dream, great speech. But we overlook Malcolm. I think we only talk about Malcolm around February, right? He should be talked about a lot through history. I know he has Malcolm X Boulevard throughout the States, but it's true what you say. We should really recognize him and talk about him a little bit more, because he wasn't. There's more to Malcolm than that individual who preached hate for white men, for white people, call them the devils. There's more to him. Like, look at his journey, and you understand why he thought that way to where he was to the day that he was murdered. So I respect him, and yeah, he's definitely my number one activist, for sure. Malcolm, for sure. It's a mixture of all that, because it's a mixture for sure. The pandemic, George Floyd being murdered, and then everything else that's happened after that. So the movement kind of died down in terms of Black Lives Matter, right? And then it picked back up about a year ago. And I think this is where we're going to keep riding that. We're not going to slow down again. Our voices are going to be heard. We're going to share stories about Black history, not only in the month of February, but all through the year, right? For me, I could totally relate to, not loving yourself. I used to straighten my hair. Sometimes you say, well, why am I so dark? I want to be lighter, all those things we do go through as we were growing up, right? And then we didn't have that visual look of us on the television or in magazines. So what you saw was just usually that white, blonde, blue eye, or whatever, right? So I knew that when I was pregnant, and if I had a girl or whatever, I had boy or girl, but if she was definitely a girl, I knew I was no longer going to be straightening my hair. I was going to take that natural journey, and me and my daughter were going to be going through that together. I purchased books, Black stories, Black dolls, Black things that were all Blackness before she was born, because I knew I wanted her to really start loving herself from the minute that she laid eyes on me, because I'm a reflection of her, right? So you see me, you see the Black beauty within your mother, you're going to see that within yourself. And that's what I want to teach her. And I continue teaching Mara this, because it's very important for her to have that self-love within herself. And it's being empowered, and things like this, having her auntie, making these documentaries or these vlogs to talk about Black history and encourage people to watch these movies. She's loving it. She's like, what's Auntie Norma going to post today? What number is she on? So she's involved, right? She's involved in the process. So these are great, Norma. It's important for us to just love ourselves and educate ourselves in the process. And the theme of family, it was great. You have family story, right? And then you never used to see those family stories of Black families and their journey. We do bleed too, people, and we bleed the same color blood as you do. And these are our stories, and I think he did it really well in Brooklyn and some of his other movies as well. Holding Days, oh man, that was a good one. Whole Days. Because the stories today, the movies today, are not only about the slave stories, right? Because we all know that Black history doesn't start at slave. It's not our story, right? So I love to see Black families. I like to see Black love. I recently watched Sylvie's Love on Prime. It wasn't the most greatest movie I'd watched, but it was just something that was just soft and sweet and love, and it was about that jazz era, and I love that time. It was just a really nice movie. So I'm glad to see more of that on the Netflix, the Primes, or any other streaming outlets out there, because we have those movies. We do fall in love, and we're not what they usually think of us as, drug dealers or murderers, whatever the case may be, or single moms doing dope and that kind of story. There's more to us. Yes, those stories do exist, but there's a lot of successful stories that we don't share, and I'm glad it's being heard more with directors like Ava who are putting these movies out there. So Happy. And you're right when you said that Malcolm X, he didn't BS. He would just tell you as it is. And one of the things in the movie, there's this little white girl who comes up to him, and I think he's going to be speaking at Boston University, and she runs up to him. She says, Malcolm, can I help with anything? I want to join. And he says to her, nothing. Like, straight out, that's nothing. And then in another scene, he talks about, he's having coffee, and he's like, the only thing I mix is my black and white is my coffee. he was just like, this is Malcolm. He's just putting it out there. He's so firm and honest at the same time. And I think that's where the fear comes, because he spoke the truth. The truth. Yeah, it's definitely a repeat pattern. Like, they just automatically break up families. Oh, let's just break them up and spread them across the city and have them not grow up with each other and be planted in somewhere. So yeah, what we all know what happens when he speaks to his teacher and the teacher tells him, yeah, watch the movie and find out that, things that are happening to this day in the Canadian educational system, where teachers are telling you, no, you cannot do this instead. There's a reason why there's a lack of students of color in business schools, because when they're in high school picking their university or college paths, a lot of them are deterred to do this instead, right? So it's very important for parents to take charge and be involved in their kids' education, so they know exactly what's going on. And one of his quotes, I don't know, I think I have it somewhere on my phone. I think it's something I keep in my book of quotes, but I don't know, I can't find it right now. But he says education is key to grow yourself out of oppression and poverty. Education is very, very key. And that's something that we do push. This is a plug. Within a small organization, education is very important. And I really believe that's your root. You take yourself out of any type of poverty or just bad circumstances. Education is key. So after his death, right, his family, right, his wife, Betty Shabazz, who stood by him to his last breath. And then she raised all those children together. I think they had 5 kids, I'm not so sure, 5 or 6 children. And she passed away. They said that, they say it was murder in terms of what happened to her. Like, Malcolm, his own grandson was charged for murdering his grandmother by setting the house ablaze. Like, he set a fire. And that's how she died. And then he went to I think it was juvie prison, because he was young. He was a child. And it's the daughter, I can't remember her name, but one of the daughters who really hated Farrakhan and really was very adamant that the Nation of Islam murdered her father and tore their family apart. And like, she even put a hit on him. And then that all fell apart, of course. And then years later, I think, if Farrakhan came and said that he'd forgive her for that. And so like the afterlife, like his family was still dealing with stuff, right? Losing his wife by in a fire, by being murdered by the grandson, hard, right? And then years later, the grandson he's murdered in Mexico, fighting for the rights of Mexican farmers or something like that. So there's still that hardship within his family history and the struggles of just overcoming certain things. And it's just interesting. They didn't want to they struggled for many, many years. Betty was a nurse, and I believe she got several degrees, PhD, I think, as well. But yeah, the nation could care less. And even to this day, I don't even think they even talk about the contributions. Just the early contributions of how Malcolm X grew many mosques around the United States. Like, he made them huge. Like, he contributed to some of those successes, right? So I don't think they share that news with any of their really writings or with their students. Misguided. The words are just misguided. But then you ask yourself, who wrote the dictionary, right? But I'm pretty sure he was a white man. Like, for him to the white man's gonna say, yeah, we're pure, we're beautiful like snow and all that stuff, right? So that part of the movie, very powerful, very powerful. Make you gasp. You're like, oh my gosh, evil and not trustworthy. Like, the words that they used to describe Black was just very, very so inhumane. Like, and that's what they associated us. Like, you're not human. You're not. Yeah. And it's very hurtful. Like, very hurtful. And yeah. And that's the stuff that we need to decolonize our mind. Bob Marley said it best. Shout out to Bob Marley. Birthday, Bob. Earth strong. Emancipate yourself from anti-slavery, but ourselves to free our minds. And it's so true. Links them together, right? That's why it's so important for us to continue these kind of conversations, educate ourselves as Black people, and just really open some history books, learn about our history. There's so much beauty in what we have and what we offer, and you'll understand why they feared us so much, why they didn't want us to learn how to read or write, why they wanted to silence us and keep us separate from them, right? And we see today the successes of Black people, like some of the things that we invented that you thought that a white man invented, it was invented by a Black person, right? This is ours, we're gonna claim it, keep it, and you're not gonna be a culture vulture and try to steal it from us, because you've been stealing everything from us for years. Now it's come to a halt, we're stopping now. It's time for that to just come to a complete stop. And that's the message that Malcolm X was really preaching, Claim your history, share your history. Don't let them destroy your mind, right? Don't let them feed you crap, right? Black is beautiful, despite what the dictionary defines it. Because so all those people that, besides the people in the community who are watching all this taking place and happening, he had the fruit of Islam. So the fruit of Islam are like the military. They're the guards for, people like Malcolm X in the nation. So you have those boys, these men, tall, strapping Black men, lined up, and Malcolm's like, okay, let's go. And the police officer, his comment is like, no one should have so much power, right? But it's okay for you as a white man to have that type of power, whether it's the chief or the deputy, whatever levels of police or commissioner, but it's not okay for this young Black man to have some power to direct some other Black men in support of another Black man, right? It's too much power to have. They're scared. Yeah, they're scared. They've been scared. Yeah, white people have been scared of Black people from time, right? So that's why we know why certain things has happened over the years, because they've been terrified of us, right? They've tried and tried and tried, and it's really true when people say, I am the fruit of my ancestors, because the trials and tribulations our ancestors have gone through, and what's happened over the years for a lot of Black men and women and children, we're still standing solid, right? And then we'll grow and still continue to grow, no matter how hard you try to kill our Black men off to stop us from growing. We will continue to grow and thrive, because that's what we do as Black people. You've knocked us down, you've kicked us, you've thrown us over ships, shackled together, and we're still here. We're not going anywhere, because we know the importance of what people have done before us, and we will continue to push forward. And watching Malcolm X would get you inspired to get involved in something, get involved to make someone proud. Inspiration, being inspired and seeing leaders along the way having that same message. And even Martin, at one point, Martin was like, this nonviolent thing is, it's good to be nonviolent, but at the time, it was just like, I don't know if it's working as much. And when he started to get a little bit more political, and not more violent, but just more political in the sense like, we can't have my people keep dying like this. We're being nonviolent and you're still coming to us with some violence. It was time to shut him up and murder him, keep him silent. But as I said, we're still here. You killed a lot of them, a lot of great men and women, but we're still here because they have inspired us and to continue to inspire generations to come. When Trayvon Martin was murdered, I started to do a lot more reading. It's about stories, whether it was like Black stories or books written by Black authors. Really look at how, if I was a mother and had a young Black child, male, and he was murdered the way Trayvon was murdered after just going to the store buying some Skittles, that's when Malcolm X is by all means necessary. Will hurt you or hurt your family, then that's when the coffin comes to the top, right? And then that anger, when you have that anger built up, and I think that's when the match was lit, and the flame was reignited. But then George was murdered. It was just like everything burned down, fire everywhere. Books. So, as I said earlier, off camera, when we were talking about books, I really enjoy Homecoming. It was quite the eye-opening earlier, or last year, was White Fragility. That was such a good book. It really taught me a lot, just as a person of color, and it was just so interesting and powerful. And not only every white person should read that book, yes, definitely, but if you're a person of color, read it as well, because it's a good resource to have some ammunition. So when you come up against some of these people, you know how to respond to them a little bit better and do it with some education background, some added mission. So you don't go straight up from 0 to 100 like that. You just be like, oh sure, no problem. You just go, and white supremacy. It's not it's not really about the KKK. White supremacists are the police forces as well. It was a really good book. So I encourage people to read that book. And during Black History Month, read books that are not only about slavery. We're more than a slave story. Read some stories where you're growing your mind. You're learning about Black people. Black Ice, I think it's called, is a really great book as well. It's about the Colored Hockey League in Canada, or just hockey in itself, and how Blacks contributed to that. How we were major contributions to hockey here in Canada. And a lot of people who are going to read that book will be very surprised to know that the Colored Hockey League existed way before the NHL did. I think definitely moving forward, we'll see more women of color continue to kick ass. Not only in America, but definitely we'll see more of them here in Canada. For sure. Like when you just look at the entertainment, those who work in entertainment now, like the Tracy Moores, who are just being vocal, talking about their stories, about what they have to go through as being a Black person in that industry, right? And then their voice, people will listen to them because they're on TV, right? They have a platform. So more of that will be coming out for sure. I definitely look forward to it. I look forward to it because, you know, we always say strong Black women. We're strong, but you know, we hurt, we get exhausted, we get depleted. But at the same time, you look around to your right, you look to your left, and you have another sister who's there to pick you up, to stand firm and just keep going. And I definitely think we're going to see more of that moving forward. Thank you for having me on your vlog.
Thank you so much again, Alethea. That was such a wonderful time. I had so much fun. I'm going to share the trailer with you now to Malcolm X by Spike Lee. And I hope you're able to find all these movies. If you aren't, please send me a message and I will help you find them on different streaming devices, or, you know, I'm really trying to find it on easy places like YouTube and just whether it's Netflix or Prime. You know, it's unfortunate we don't always get everything on our, you know, in Canada here. So please, I hope you get to watch it. Please like and subscribe and have a good evening. See you tomorrow, my friends.
What's your name?
Malcolm Little.
No. That's the name of the slave masters who own your family. You don't even know who you are. Who are you?
Say Roseland. Roseland.
He was a pusher, a hustler, a thief.
You ready to tackle the streets? Yeah, I'm ready. Let them come.
He was loved, respected, convicted.
State your number, Little. I forgot it.
In a dream that's divine.
He was a prisoner who set himself free.
A Muslim must be strikingly upright. I will not touch the white man's drugs, his liquor, his women, so that those in the darkness can see the power of the light. I will not lie, cheat, or steal.
I believe you will remain faithful. Yes.
He was a follower who became a leader.
You're not an American. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us.
He brought honor to disobedience.
I suggest you look outside that window.
You've been laying down and bowing down for 400 years. I think it's time to stand up.
All right, break it up. You got what you wanted.
Nah, I'm not satisfied.
That's too much power for one man to have.
And a voice to a people who longed to be heard.
You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray.
You're saying you're anti-white?
No, you're saying I'm anti-white.
I'm sorry, Betty. I haven't been the best husband.
I love you.
Do you advocate violence?
No, sir.
Academy Award winner Denzel Washington's most electrifying performance. Director Spike Lee's most powerful film.
Malcolm, can we all live together?
I sincerely hope so.